and we're looking at Pepsi today, Landon. Thanks for joining the show as always.
Thank you very much, Alex. Good to be here.
Alrighty, and so we're looking at Pepsi here, which me and Kevin joked before the show might actually be better referred to as Frito-Lay. What do you have for Pepsi?
Yeah, Pepsi's nuts. I mean, yes, they do have a few drink companies, or a few drink brands. They've got Pepsi and 7-Up, Mountain Dew, but they are the carb company, essentially. I mean, they sell Frito-Lays. They've got Doritos and Fritos and Tostitos. Anything that ends with O's, they own that. So they sell a ton of snacks, as you mentioned. So when we're looking at purchase intent, one of the things that we look at is the fact that it has been downtrending over the last year or so with a sharp rise in the last quarter. And so it's bounced back quite a bit, but so has the stock. So the stock is actually just off of all-time highs. I think it's down just a little bit today, but it's basically making all-time highs, whereas the purchase intent is sort of rebounding a little bit. So it's off to a good start for the year. It's a good Q1 for Pepsi. But when you look at compared to last year, it's actually down a little bit year over year, whereas the stock is up. And so that divergence, that disagreement between our data and the market is producing for LikeFolio a slightly bearish signal. It's not a massive one because, again, the purchase intent has been doing well over this last quarter, but just the fact that the stock is doing so much better leads us to a slightly bearish position on Pepsi.
I mean, Landon, when you guys measure the social data on a stock like Pepsi, where does the negativity come from? I mean, obviously, you know, salty snacks are everywhere, but it's really the sugary drinks, isn't it, that gets most of the negative attention. Everyone seems to justify their love of salty snacks, but really it's the sugary soda that everyone really is against, correct?
Absolutely. That's, I think, where Pepsi is losing a little bit. They're doing fine when it comes to foods and snacks. But when it comes to the beverages, I think they're losing a little bit. And, you know, they're trying to keep up with sort of the low carb movement with their bubbly brand, but it's just not competing. It's not hanging in there. It's not doing well. And I think that people are realizing that you can drink a lot of calories if you're just drinking Pepsi and Mountain Dew and those kind of things. And there's a little bit of a movement away from carbohydrates, and this is the carb company. So, but as you mentioned, they're holding on to their snacks. People love the snacks, but when it comes time to drink something, people are leaning more towards waters and even carbonated waters, and Pepsi is losing market share there for sure.
One question too, Landon, when you're talking about the call, you're leaning slightly bearish, but it's more from a stock outperformance standpoint, which is actually pretty similar to what we talked about with Netflix yesterday. And when you go from a confidence standpoint, when you guys are looking at your data, does that not necessarily, are those ones a little bit less confident than ones where you see a bigger divergence?
Absolutely. So our dream scenario is the stock's at all-time highs and purchase intent is tanking. Obviously, that's not the situation here, or vice versa. That's not the situation here. Basically, purchase intent is having a good quarter, but it's still down year over year, whereas the stock price is just doing extremely well. So that basically tells us that it's a little bit overbought. And again, that is, you hit the nail on the head. It's not our most confident type of setup. So we're leaning bearish on this one, yes.
Good stuff, Landon. And for more on social media, we're going to bring in Jenny Horn from TD Ameritrade Network, a contributor here. Jenny, you got some stuff from Twitter on Pepsi, right?
I do. I mean, there's definitely some positive noise about Pepsi on social media this morning, some cautious optimism over this is the second full quarter with the new CEO. They did raise their dividend last quarter. But then there's also, like Landon just mentioned, there's huge healthy movement that it seems like it's almost a bad word to say you like Pepsi and you like these different soda products. I mean, I drink soda and it seems like now it's for shame, which is so different than how it used to be, say, 5-6 years ago, which is kind of interesting. But our first tweet says, Pepsi trying to rotate for a pre-earnings release run-up. So we did see some signs of recovery in the second half of 2018 for Pepsi. What could this mean for their earnings tomorrow morning?
Yeah, and when we're looking at Pepsi, it's not really as volatile as a stock as you typically see, Kevin. So if we're looking at this, Landon, you're only expecting about a $2 expected move on a $122 stock. That's less than 2%. It's hardly even a little bit over 1. This isn't one that's as high flying as maybe a Netflix or some of the other stocks that we're looking at today.
Right.
What did you have for the second one, Jenny?
All right, so our next tweet is from Hal Anderson, who says, Pepsi plans to project giant advertisements in the night sky by using orbital billboards. And you thought pop-up ads were annoying. So this is news that came out this morning. A Russian company called Start Rocket is projecting these orbital billboards. And this was kind of all over the place on social media today because obviously it's in the sky and people are like, what the heck, how is this going to go over? Landon, I don't know if you saw this at all, but this was absolutely hilarious to me because very mixed received on social media, obviously.
That's amazing. I haven't heard of that yet. We're not seeing it in the data, obviously, yet. That's really crazy. One of the, Pepsi's got some cool advertising. Believe it or not, they own Aunt Jemima's, which, they're doing that partnership with KFC. They did that partnership with Taco Bell and the Doritos tacos. So that old relationship that they used to have with Yum Brands is really cool. So I'm looking forward to them doing something with Pizza Hut. Maybe they can do a Tostitos crust for their Pizza Hut brands or something. I don't know. They're milking that old relationship. So who knows what's going to come from Pepsi? It's awesome.
Yeah, what you're mentioning is, for the people that don't know, PepsiCo used to own Yum Brands. So they spun those off in like the late 80s. They spun off Yum Brands into its own company. But Landon, do you guys see anything in your data? Here's what pops up to someone like me all the time. I grew up drinking soda, right? Young in the 70s, we drank soda, 70s and 80s. Now here's the thing. Are people more afraid of the sugar in the soda or the chemicals in the diet drink? Which is the more raising the bigger flag?
I think that's a great point. I think the answer is both. I mean, one of the things that we track is movements in diet and exercise, and keto in general is off the charts. People are really anti-carb lately, but also, as you mentioned, they're anti-chemicals, and so the diet they're shying away from.
Right.
I travel a lot. I know you do too, Kevin. One of the things that I've noticed when you go to convenience stores in sort of the Midwest, you see tons of sugary drinks in all the displays, and there's almost no soda waters. There's not a lot of waters. But when you get out to the coasts, you see a lot more soda waters, and I think it's sort of slowly moving throughout the country, and I think that's a very bad trend for Pepsi because they're falling behind there. They need to up their game as far as the no chemical, low carb, like the bubbly brand, what it's supposed to do. They need to up that because it's falling behind.